Hey there, it's Jacques from Heroes and Legends. Today I have a Legacy Cube draft for you. So this is the Legacy Cube that recently ended on Magic Online, but I had some gameplay footage, so I wanted to get that out there to you guys. So looking at pack 1, there's a few cards that jump out at me. Gaia's Cradle's one if I wanted to go ahead and try to go for that green ramp deck and try to pick up a lot of mana dorks. Kira's great in just about any deck. We're going to be playing a lot of creatures, especially blue base, being double blue. Wormcoil Engine, though, it's 6/6, Death Touch, Lifelink, stands up great against board sweeps. It's kind of that 6 Titan, doesn't lock you into color or any strategy at this point, and I think is a really fine first pick. This card's done a lot of work for me, not only in this cube, but in Vintage Cube. So this is going to be my pick in this pack, but a lot of good choices there. Definitely wouldn't fault anyone for a couple of the other cards. So going into the second pick, one card is going to stand out to me here in this bunch, and it's Opposition. I like cards like Spectral Procession. I think there's a lot of other things you can do with them, equip up the tokens and stuff like that. But Opposition is just busted if you can get it to work in the right deck for you. And now this is one of those unfair things you can certainly do in Legacy Cube. So I'm going to go ahead and pick up Opposition here. Now I'm going to start looking for maybe some small creatures, some token generators, something like that that's going to go along with Opposition, but also trying to focus on blue a little bit, maybe try to cut that. Now, this pack's only got one blue card, which means somebody probably has already drafted something in blue, but it's a good one with Mana War. And looking at the rest of the pack, nothing really is exciting to me. I mean, Brimstone Valley's fine. The Stomp Howler's good in Vintage Cube, but not as great in this cube. They took out a lot of the good artifacts, but I'm going to pick up Mana War here. So got a few options in this pack. Hymn to Turok's always great, but it is double black, and we've already started going down a really strong blue path here. Brutal Expulsion's interesting. That's a new card to the cube. Picking up a dual land, especially when it's a color we already have, is excellent. But Threads of Disloyalty is what's kind of catching my eye here. This is a great card. Any take control of creature card in this cube is actually really good. Obviously, this isn't quite as good as, say, Control Magic or Treachery, which used to be in this cube, but it's still very fine. And speaking of broken things you can do in this cube, Show and Tell's in this pack. So Show and Tell is not an automatic win by any means in this cube. There's a lot of those creatures that can come into play and kind of mess with your plan. So you may drop some, I don't know, giant Eldrazi or something, but your opponent could drop a Fiend Hunter and exile it. So it's not a guarantee win, but there's enough crazy stuff you could do with it. This pack I'm looking at Dragon Fodder. Maybe I'll go Izzet, and that works very well with the Opposition, so nothing else really caught my eye in that pack. Well, here's Kozilek, which is on plan if we're going to go all in on the Show and Tell. And maybe if we're lucky, we'll be able to pick up Sneak Attack that's also in this cube and do a Sneak and Show deck. But yeah, Kozilek's very good. Another thing we can think about looking for is other ways to ramp. Maybe start picking up Mana Dorks if they're not already being drafted, but I believe there's a wall of roots in our first pack, so odds are that strategy is probably going to be drafted. There's Murray's Wake, very, very powerful card. Helps with the ramp strategy if we want to try to hardcast Kozilek at some point. But there's other good cards in this pack as well. Condemn is excellent removal, and removal for creatures, especially cheap removal and instant speed, is very, very good in this cube. So that's what I'm going to go with. Now we're getting kind of towards the end of the pack, but Spell Pierce is just fine. It's actually a very good card, so works well in this cube. I don't mind picking it up. A few things here. I mean, Fate Fetters is a great card. Battlefield Forge is also an option, though, too, to start thinking about picking up other colors, especially since we do have Condemn and Dragon Fodder right now. Nothing fantastic for our deck, so I'm just going to take the land here in case I do want to go into green at some point. Tropical Island, again, is another good pickup just in case I want to splash some green. And again, I'm thinking at this point, Mana Dorks might be a possibility, or at least picking up some of them. And maybe we do become more of a Simic deck. We're not really married to white or red at this point. I'll pick up the City of Brass, great color fixing card here. So far I kind of like where we're going out of pack 1. This one, I'm looking at Garrick T. I figured, well, maybe it's a good sideboard card. I could splash it for green. But I don't click on it fast enough, and we end up with Evolutionary Leap, which is just fine. In some ways, actually, may be good for our deck, depending on which direction we go. But right now, either of those cards would end up in the sideboard, and then we get past to Read the Bones. Alright, so here's pack 2. A few things that jump out. I mean, Oblivion Ring's always good. There's Crux of Fate, which is removable double black. Phantasmal Image is great. Deep Analysis, though, I got my eye on that one because it is card draw. And if we end up playing a combo deck, we're going to want to be able to see a lot of cards. So this gives us the opportunity to draw 2 cards, then flash it back and draw 2 more. And I can't really pass that up. That's going to be a big commodity. So this pack, well, it's got 5/5 flyer that even could be sneak and showed into play, which isn't bad. Exclude is not a bad card either. Go for the Throat again if you want to start dabbling in black, but kind of already in enough colors. So I think I'm just going to try to go a little more heavy control, try to protect our combo a little bit. So I do have my eye on the Exclude right now. A lot of good black cards in this pack, though. Alright. Reanimate is still available. I'm looking right now at Sower of Temptation. Again, it's just another one of those kind of steal effects. Thinking briefly about Reanimate here, but again, I'm a little concerned about going into other colors, and I don't really have anything to reanimate. Kozilek doesn't go in the graveyard, so Sower is just a much better pickup here. Again, some strong black cards coming by with Desecration Demon. I wouldn't say it's too late to get into black, but it's getting to that point at this time. There's Baleful Strix, which would just be a black splash along with our blue. Duplicate can also be decent at times, especially if you're looking for some removal, but I'm going to go with the Baleful Strix. Kind of works as a quasi-removal card that replaces itself. Alright, so here's an interesting one. There's not a whole lot that jumps out to me in this pack, but maybe Thassa is something that is playable. It only costs 3. It's going to help me scry, which again will help me get to my combo if that's the route I take. And if it becomes a 5/5 creature, well, wonderful. It becomes a 5/5 creature, even better. So I'll pick it up and try it out. Well, I picked up Thassa, and now there's Master of Waves, and there's nothing else really that's jumping out to me. I really like Whisperwood Elemental. Of course, it's double green. Not that it's impossible to cast with our mana base, but I'm just going to go with Master of the Waves here and see what happens. Maybe I can pick up some more permanents with blue. And here's a perfect example, Future Sight. Future Sight is a very powerful card, but it also is 3 blue and 2 colorless, which really kind of plays well with the Devotion theme, and it helps us get to our combo if that's what we're trying to do. So here I'm looking at a couple cards. Careful Study, again, it's going to allow us to dig, but Gitaxian Probe can do a lot of good stuff. I mean, knowing when you're in the clear, if I want to play a Show and Tell, but I'm not sure what my opponent has in their hand, that card's perfect, so I'm just going to take it. This pack doesn't seemingly have a lot for us, but we do have the red and white splash, so it leaves a lot of these cards open for us. There's the direct damage cards and things like Flame Tongue Kavu, but I'm looking at Assemble the Legion. At this point, I don't know if I'm going to play it, but I'm going to pick it up. We'll take the dragon here. I mean, that's just fine. It's another bigger creature. Kind of grab the Repeal here. Repeal can do some work. It's a fine card. And we still have Duplicant. There's also Woodland Cemetery I'm glancing at, but I don't want to pass up the Duplicant at this point. We'll go ahead and take John Finkel. Don't know if we'll play him. Just depends on how much black we're going to play. And probably not really playing anything double red or a Devil's Play type spell, but we'll just take Chandra there and Maelstrom Pulse, which isn't out of the realm of possible plays at this point. Alright, so this pack's going to tell us a lot about where we end up and probably what colors we end up in. So here we are, pack 3. One card is really standing out to me, although I like Supreme Verdict, I like Venser, but Forbid, if you can Forbid lock somebody, that's just nuts. This is a very, very powerful counterspell, and I'm going to pick that one up. A few things here catch my eye. There's Force Spike, which I do enjoy, but not as good in this cube, I think, as in maybe the past versions of the cube. Bitter Blossom is interesting, but it's black again. I don't know if we have a whole lot of room. I'm looking at the Bloodstained Mire because it is a fetch land, and that's what I'm just going to take at this point. And here's a pack that's got some good cards, but Ulamog's jumping out at me as just another card I can show and tell. Right now I'm a little tight on good show and tell targets. I really like Batterskull as well. Burial Rites would be good if we were going in a reanimator strategy, but a bit late for that. Not a whole ton here for us. There's Old Man in the Sea, which is just fine. There's also Overgrown Tomb, which is something we'd be able to fetch for. But again, we don't really have any green. We haven't picked up any green that we want to use, and it's getting kind of late. There's also a Temple of Enlightenment, which lets us scry, and those are two colors we're probably playing, even though right now my white is only Condemned, but I think it might be good enough to splash it. Natural Order, if only we're in green. But check this out. We get Jace, Vern's Prodigy, and Sneak Attack in the same pack. Now, these are two cards that would be amazing for our deck. I think I got to go with the Sneak Attack, though. As awesome as Jace is, and it is awesome, especially with what we're trying to do, Sneak Attack is just game over with those Eldrazi's. So we're going to go ahead and pick that up. So we do have a Sneak and Show deck now. Imagine that. And now I'm going to start thinking about maybe we're just going to cut the black and try to go red, blue with really a light splash of red and a light splash of white, more blue than anything. So I'm going to think about Assemble the Legion now, especially if I'm going to be a little more dedicated to red. I'm going to take the black out. That will be a fine card, along with Dragon Fodder is what I'm considering here. So it kind of changes the makeup of our deck a little bit. We're just going to get out of black and try to do a light splash for white and red. A few things here. There's Ancient Tomb is probably the best pickup. It's just a way to ramp out, and we don't really have ramp. I mean, we have tricks like Show and Tell and Sneak Attack, but it'd be nice to have an Ancient Tomb to maybe be able to play a early Wormcoil Engine or something like that. So yeah, I'm going to pick that up. I think that's the best thing here. I mean, there's a few good counter spells and stuff, but we'll just take that. This pack, it's got Scroll Rack, it's got Tundra, it's got Bayou. That's kind of what I'm looking at right now. Oust isn't a bad card either if I wanted to go a little heavier white, but I'm just going to take the Tundra here. Just make sure our mana's okay. Waterfront Bouncer or Time Warp. Waterfront Bouncer is really good. I probably could have used another 2-drop. I go with Time Warp here. I don't know if that was a good pick or not. Bouncer may have been a little better for my curve. Supreme Verdict is a thing, for sure. We'll pick that up. There's a late Llanowar Elves, but of course that ship's kind of sailed for us. We'll take the Cloud Goat. Alright, well, can grab another potential Show and Tell or Sneak Attack target, so get another big creature there. A little bit light on creatures, so I'm going to pick up Old Man in the Sea. It's kind of another steal effect as well for small creatures. And we'll just get past out Garrick and things with the Bayou. It's interesting nobody took that. Alright, so I kind of like where we're at. We're going to have to look at our lands. Some of these lands really don't fit anymore with the colors we ended up in. So we'll have to take a few of these out. But I think we're pretty close to having our deck. We probably have a couple cuts to make here. few things I'm trying to think about at this point of the game is basically just which ones of these cards are probably more sideboard cards. I'm going to go ahead and take my sneak attack targets and my show and tell targets, kind of put them off to the side, just so I don't really count them in my curve. I'm not really planning on casting those cards. We'll have to put a few of these things in the sideboard. So things like Time Warp. Time Warp's a good card in certain decks, but I don't know if this deck's really looking for a Time Walk for 5. I don't know if it does enough in this deck, because we're not really... I mean, it'd be nice to be able to show and tell something out and then time warp, but realistically, that's a lot of mana, and this deck isn't generating any extra mana from anywhere. So... other than the Ancient Tomb, I guess, that's probably not going to be something that happens. Feels a good card. I'm thinking, though, that might have to go in the sideboard. Our deck's a little mana heavy. We got a lot of good 3-drops. Don't really have any 2-drops. At this point, I moved Dragon Fodder over to the sideboard. I'm going to move Repeal over there as well. Considering Supreme Verdict, but that might just be a sideboard card, just because a lot of decks we might go up against might not be super creature heavy. It might be something we can board in when we need it. And I'm going to debate too about, say, Opposition and Assemble the Legion, some of those cards, but that is a great backup win condition if it just happens to come out that way instead of the, I guess, plan of getting sneak attack or show and tell. It's just another way for us to win. So I'm really hesitant to remove that. I'm really probably going to remove Time Warp before I take that out. Time Warp's just very expensive, and like I said, it's a good card. I just think we're faced right now with a lot of really strong cards. And I like the fact that we have 3 6-drops and the Ancient Tomb. We have a little bit of tempo with some of our counter spells and our Mana War as well, so we should be able to get there. I really do like this deck, and I do like our mana base. I think we have some good pickups for being able to play the Sneak Attack, the Assemble the Legion, the Condemn, which are all very good cards. Never played with Assemble the Legion in this cube, so I am kind of looking forward to seeing how that works out. So I think we're pretty much there. Just have to add our basic lands. See what they suggest. 9-1 and 1. We really don't need any more planes. We have enough duels, and we have City of Brass and stuff, so we'll do 10 and 1. Throw 1 mountain in there. We can fetch for that. And that's the deck, so I'm pretty happy. I think it came out well, and I will see you guys in round 1.